Hello fellow old schoolers. One of my mates sent me all the recordings from one of the cameras at the Long Island Cup 2.0. So we're gonna go over these recordings one at a time here, and I don't have any deck pictures of them, so we'll just see what comes up, and I will try to blaze through an introduction here. We'll just present the two archetypes in a nutshell, and that'll be kind of the theme of the next few videos here as we go through the various matchups. This first one is the mono-green Stompy archetype coming up against a blue and red Counterburn. There's a bunch of those Counterburn decks on this tournament, it seems. But yeah, let's go over the UR Counterburn real quick here, just the archetype. First off, the UR Counterburn's main strategy and win con is an aggro burn strategy, where it will try to overwhelm the other player in the opening game with a bunch of very cheap flying creatures just flying over the defenders, poking in, and then finishing the game with a lot of burn. As for creatures, it usually uses 4 flying men, which is a 1/1 flying creature, and 4 Serendipity Freaks, which is a 3/4 flying creature that pings you for 1 damage each upkeep. The burn strategy is usually lightning bolts, chain lightnings, a few fireballs, and perhaps a full playset of sonic blasts, at least a few in there. Then it has a control element to the deck, where it uses 4 counterspells and a mana drain usually. It can use this to just kind of block key cards from the opponent, or perhaps very big creatures that it can't easily bolt away. Or blocking Demonic Tutor, Ancestor Recall, stuff like that. And then it can actually, in some matchups, it can kind of shift gears into a control variant, where it will try to go the control route with putting out creatures and defending those creatures with counterspells. Sort of like aggro control, really, just with fewer colors. Then it has a lot of hard card advantage here, a lot of draw power. It uses the draw 7 from blue and the draw 7 from red, namely the Time Twister and Wheel of Fortune, and obviously it has access to Brain Geyser and Ancestral Recall as well, and Time Walk. Really good in that department. In playing only 2 colors, it's easily mana fixed, and it has access to some of the stronger sideboard cards here, namely the Energy Flux against artifacts, because UR Counterburn doesn't use artifacts that much, and then it has access to Blood Moon, so sweeping sideboard cards here, both of which won't come into play in this particular matchup, as it's coming up against the mono-green archetype. As for weaknesses, the UR Counterburn can remove critters, small creatures with its bolt spells, but it does, in my experience, it does tend to struggle with creatures with 4 in toughness and above, because it can only use its Sonic Blast to remove them, and those are expensive to cast, both in mana and in life total. And 5 and above toughness creatures are really a problem for UR Counterburn, really difficult for it to remove them. As previously mentioned, is one of the strengths of this deck is its card drawing ability. It draws a lot of cards and is really dynamic in that regard, but it also has a high cost in cards as well. Card intensive, we could call it, because many of its spells are one-offs, like burn spells, so it does need to it does tend to run out of steam unless it can get its draw engine going and replenish its hand, because it just tends to fling all those spells away. It doesn't have a lot of permanence for continual damage, relying mostly on a lot of card draws and powerful cheap burst spells or burn spells and powerful and cheap creatures. And as for removal, it can also have a bit of problems removing enchantments, as blue and red doesn't have an easy time with that. It can use the Chaos Orb, obviously, but apart from that, if an enchantment gets cast, I mean, if it gets through the counter magic, UR Counterburn will have a hard time removing it. So overall, the play style of this deck is having a really strong and aggressive opening with fast little creatures, burning the other creatures, the opposing creatures away with bolts, and then getting in for a few pokes with those creatures, and then later on getting a bunch of draw power out, drawing a bunch of cards, and then just burning the other player away with a lot of bolts and sonic blasts in succession, maybe finishing the game with a fireball. That's the usual MO or strategy of this particular archetype. It can go toe-to-toe with aggro with all those bolts, and it can go toe-to-toe with control very well. Has a very nice matchup against that as well, because of all those cheap little attack vectors it can make use of, and because it also can go into a counter war with archetypes like the deck and similar. After the mid game, it does tend to run out of steam, I believe. It does need to have a lot of draws in just to keep up with the more slow archetypes like mid-range decks and stuff like that, and can get a bit flimsy later on, and not having the same staying power as some other decks like Geddon, for example, will have, because it'll just have bigger creatures and more permanence. So that's the UR Counterburn deck in a nutshell. It's coming up against a very focused aggro deck in the mono-green Stompy. Let's go over that real quick. Whereas the UR Counterburn had a hybrid strategy with aggro and burn, this mono-green archetype is entirely focused on that aggro strategy, which means an veritable army of 1-drops and 2-drop creatures here, like Llanowar Elves and Scavenger Foes, and all the little fairies like Script Sprites and Agothian Pixies. And the 1/1 creatures will be boosted by Pendelhaven. This deck usually plays a full 3 of them, which can tap for green mana, but can also tap to provide +1/+2 to a 1/1 creature. All those little creatures will put some very early pressure on the opponent. Once the opponent gets a bigger creature out, well, you can use Giant Growths just to really overwhelm that bigger creature. It is a great card for these little things here. It can also be used defensively just to protect them. And this deck has a combination with Giant Growths and Berserks, makes it possible for it to do some huge bursts of damage, with giant creatures getting first Giant Growths, and then a couple of Berserks will double it once or twice the attack power with a Trample, so it can really just punch in later on for a big punch and just finishing the game through that. It's sort of like the parallel to a Fireball from the UR Counterburn. This deck just uses the creatures going Berserk instead. Now, whereas the UR Counterburn makes use of a lot of hard card advantage, as I mentioned earlier, the mono-green deck is all about the soft card advantage, which is way more subtle, but also, I mean, it's perpetual. It just keeps on going. And the way it tends to do that is having a very, very low mana curve, as mentioned, with all those 1-drops. And then it doesn't require a lot of forests. Also, because of those mana creatures, it has like Llanowar Elves and Elves of Deep Shadow that can provide the mana instead and be a 1/1 creature. So the deck can function just fine with very, very little forests, and that means that the odds of you drawing a non-land card later on in the game will be that much higher. And the soft card advantage is really just supported by the Sylvan library that this deck uses, that makes you look at the top 3 cards and pick the one you want. And you can also convert that into hard card advantage. If you pay 4 life, you can keep an extra card. Shuffling through and shifting through the top 3 cards, getting creatures or Giant Growths or whatever you need. So yeah, it just tends to draw good or better cards than the opponents, and it doesn't really get mana flooded at all. The entire strategy of this deck is really just balancing on a knife's edge, having just barely enough mana to get all your 1-drops out, and then just keep on drawing creatures upon creatures upon creatures, and just kind of overwhelming the other guy with that army of 1/1 creatures boosted by Pendelhaven, Giant Growths, and Berserks. Now, this deck also has a couple of weaknesses though. Whereas the UR Counterburn has buckets full of creature removal, the mono-green archetype doesn't have a lot of direct creature removal, really anything at all. It does have hurricanes to do damage to flying creatures, but that's about it. And the very clunky and expensive Desert Twister can remove any card in play. But like direct creature removal, like lightning bolts or swords to plowshares, yeah, nothing of the sorts. And it also lacks that hard card advantage that is so prevalent in the old school scene, but kind of makes up for that by having that soft card advantage that I mentioned. It does tend to run out of steam though once it's spent its opening hand. It really needs to do a lot of damage early on. And that brings me into the third weakness here. It has little direct damage, and that means little reach. If the other guy stabilizes, it'll have a hard time getting in for those final few points of damage. I mean, mono green has Storm Seekers that you can use against control, and it has those aforementioned hurricanes to do X points of damage. But apart from that, this deck needs to make use of its berserks and pump those things up with giant growths and stuff like that. So that is its only reach. It is those creatures trampling over, and that kind of makes it a bit of a unidimensional win con, which means if the other guy has like moats and abyss and stuff like that out, mazes of ith, it can really stop this deck in its tracks because it has no other viable way to bring the other guy to 0. It does, however, have plenty of land destruction in the form of the ice storms. It will make it break through mazes of ith and stuff like that, and it also has access to tranquility if it so chooses against the abyss and moat and stuff like that. So it does have answers to that, but it needs to sideboard those cards in and guess correctly what the other guy is up to. All in all, this makes it so that it has an impressive early game, really putting the pressure on the other guy with a lot of cheap little creatures. It has great artifact removal in the form of the crumbles and scavenger folks ready to destroy Moxen or defensive artifacts and Mistress Factories. Obviously, ice storms can be used against that as well. It will tend to run out of steam a lot after the mid game or even in the mid game, so it'll have to rely on its early aggression here. Though in this particular matchup, there are a lot of draw 7s here, and I wonder if they get played, it might play right into the hands of the mono green deck here, because yeah, he wants to kill with a single fistful of creatures, and providing him another fistful of creatures might be dangerous. But the UR Counterburn really needs its draw 7s to get the burn roller coaster going. So yeah, we'll have to see how this plays out. It's going to be an interesting one, I think. All in all, the matchup is also, I think there's a theme here that the UR Counterburn will have. I mean, it'll be like a shooting gallery. It'll have a lot of targets for its bolts, because all those little creatures will be boltable, at least before sideboard. But on the other hand, if UR Counterburn spends all its bolts on the little critters, how will it burn the other guy away? So it will be a balancing act here, and decisions will have to be made on whether you should bolt a 1/1 green creature or try to burn the other player out. We shall see what he chooses here. Let's get ready to rumble. It's round number 1 of this tournament match. Let's look at the hand here. Oh yeah, okay, there's a blue sapphire there, and that saves the entire hand, because you actually can play into the Ancestor Recall, and you also get an early flying men out, and you also have the mountain for the lightning bolt. Okay, Script Sprite coming out straight from the get-go from the mono green player here, getting bolted out of the sky immediately. There's the Ancestor Recall. Recuperating the hand of the UR Counterburn player. So, passing the turn, another one comes out here. Scavenger Folk, backed up by a factory. Really early aggro aggression here. UR Counterburn drew into a black mox here. It doesn't play with black. You can play black with this archetype for Demonic 2-Tone Mind Twist, but I don't think this guy does. Flying Men coming out here. It can't block the factory, but I suppose he can bolt that, or at least represent a bolt with that untapped mountain. And he should probably block this Scavenger Folk as well. Oh, there's a Pendelhaven though. Now that Scavenger Folk will become a 2/3 creature, so he can't really block it. Needs to let it in. So he lets the Scavenger Folk in. It doesn't get pumped. Nope. Oh, that's an Ice Storm instead. Probably on the mountain, right? That would be the correct play, I think. Oh yeah, and he lightning bolts as a fast effect, but correctly played by the mono green player. He did it after the attack, so he got the damage in from that Scavenger Folk before that, knowing that the other guy would likely use a lightning bolt. So he's cracked him out of red mana. The UR Counterburn player only has access to blue mana at this point, but he does have a double blue, so he can counter. Factory coming down, and another Flying Men. So really using all his burn just to survive in the early game here. Is that as a Wheel of Fortune in his hand? Question is, will you play it? It will be dangerous. I suppose he might. Factory coming in here. Getting Sonic blasted though. Very expensive, but there's a double factory out there. He needs to get rid of them as quickly as possible. What's happening here? Giant growth. Oh man. Okay, so it's now a 5/5 creature. Surviving the Sonic Blast, now getting pumped by the other factory coming in here. 6/6 creature this time. You are a Counterburn player. He had that Wheel of Fortune in hand, likely wanted to empty his own hand and destroying permanents, but now it was not to be. He's losing permanents instead. Drawing into Volcanic Island here, very important if he wants that wheel out. Coming in for a poke here with the Flying Men. I'm putting in the life total here because the green player doesn't really have his life total, and that's a third factory though. Talk about factory aggression. Activating one of them. Yeah, so it's 19 lives on the mono green player and 17 on the blue red player. Activating the factory here. What can he make happen? Activating his own factory as a blocker here. Now blocking the other factory. It gets pumped into a 3/3. Pumps itself into a 3/3. Oh no, Sonic blasting the other guy before there's damage dealt, but after block. So, as a Llanowelf follow-up here, as the wheel. Yeah, he was running out of options here. Let's see what he drew into. He's very good at showing his hand. A counterspell, factory, island, 70 freed, another factory. There's a fork, excellent. And the lightning bolt. Fork is always a fun card, I think. You don't usually see it that much, which surprises me because I just think it's really versatile. Flying Men coming in here. Another poke. As the other hand, excellent. Forest, Berserk, Strip Mine, and another factory. And a crumble as well. Okay, second factory coming out of You Are Counterburn. A bit of a factory war here. He does have a counterspell in hand and double blue mana up. Okay, passing turn to the mono green player. Yeah, he has a counterspell. Showing it here. You did see the fourth factory out of the mono green player, and he has enough forest. Didn't have enough creatures though. Only that Berserk, but he does have a crumble against another factory. So he can remove one of the other guy's factories. He can also... No. Oh, he has a strip mine as well. Oh yeah, he drew into that as well. Strip mining one of the factories. Makes sense. What does he do here? Oh... Okay, yeah. The other guy activates the factory, pumps the other factory, but he needs to activate that factory in order for it to get pumped. That makes it a crumble target. So the green player can crumble it even before he attacks. Now, I think the You Are Counterburn player needs to counter this, otherwise he'll be overrun by those factories. Yeah, countering it here. So I guess the factory survives here. It is now a 3/3 factory, and potentially can pump itself into a 4/4. So it will be difficult for the green player to get in this round because of that counterspell. And next time he'll have to trade factory for factory. So I think that counterspell was a correct counterspell. Okay, the elf taps for mana, getting out another elf, keeping the Pendelhaven untapped. Oh, another factory coming out, and the Flying Man gets in again for another visit. From the skies here, swinging his little saber there. Bringing the mono green player down to 17. Ooh, that's a big brother though. The Serenity Ifrit comes out of the bottle. 3/4. Excellent blocker here. Okay. Now that is a bit of a pickle for green, because as I mentioned in the deck tech, or in the deck archetype, he doesn't have a lot of spot removal. I wonder if he plays with Hurricanes. I really like Hurricanes in the mono green archetype. I played it as well back when I was on mono green. This is Jesper. He has a lot more experience with the mono green archetype than I do. Okay, it's 3 factories. One was out of the camera angle there. Okay, 3 elves, 3 factories, but the problem with all that ground army is that none of it flies. So the Serenity Ifrit and the Flying Men can attack with impunity here. The air forces from the You Are Counterburn coming in here. Strafing run. 4 points of damage. Do we have a Hurricane? Obviously we don't have it at instant speed, but we'll need one in the next turn. Now it gets in. It seems, yeah, it got in. 4 points of damage, bringing the mono green player down to 13. And You Are Counterburn feels confident enough to tap out completely here, being so much ahead in life. Brain Geyser here for 5 cards, keeping the Volcanic Island untapped. Probably reckoning he'll draw into a bolt, so that he can bolt at instant speed. And he did have a bolt there. He's tapped out though, both factories and the little creatures, so brace for impact as the counter punch comes in for green. Green needs to finish this now. The card advantage is too much to handle otherwise from UR Counterburn. So he needs some giant growth berserk magic to happen here. And be mindful, because the other guy can actually bolt at instant speed and then bolt a creature out of commission before the giant growth takes effect. So perhaps you should pump a factory up into a 4/4 and then attack with that and pump it with berserks if he has that in hand. He really needs to punch in here. Yeah, here we come. Full steam ahead. At least only the elves though. And okay, a few factories. One of the factories gets bolted. And the Pendelhaven boosts one of the elves here. Okay, factory gets electrocuted. Disintegrating immediately. And the elves gets in for 4 here, it seems. They're discussing something. Okay, yeah, there we go. Factory dead. 4 points of damage onto UR Counterburn. So the Mono Green kept the factory untapped as a blocker against the opposing factories, I suppose. Just so he can't get completely destroyed here by everything. It is a bit of a pickle. It has that flying army. You can't really handle it. Was that a fireball on the hand of the UR? Yeah, it's a fireball and a fork on the hand of the UR Counterburn player. It's pretty nice that we can see his hand like this. So, gearing up for an attack here. Really considering, I think he's going for the finishing move. Playing the Sol Ring with the Mox Jet and then attacking with the flying army, the flying circus here, coming in for 4. Okay, bringing the Mono Green player down to 9 points of life. Here we count it. And as a fireball, for 9 in total. Could barely make it work here. Counterburn takes the first one here. Fireballing the other guy away for 9 points of damage. Now it's sideboard time. Okay, so the UR Counterburn player, he actually had 2 Red Blasts main deck here. Taking them out immediately. They're obviously dead draws in this matchup. So what will he take in? We can watch him here. So fireball. Oh, Psychic Purchase as well. Shatter's probably not worth it, unless he anticipates the other guy will take Cities in a Bottle in. I think he will. It's Jesper, I know, the green player. He owns 2, there's a fireball coming in, and 2 Psychic Purchase coming in as well. Psychic Purchases are used against Hypnotic Spectres and Mind Twist, stuff that will discard cards from your hand, but they can also be used just as a spell that does 1 point of damage if you don't discard it. And that's actually pretty damn awesome, because you can use that as additional removal against all the 1/1 creatures. I think Jesper, he will likely take in some 4 in toughness creatures. Either he'll take in Ernemgens and perhaps Spitting Slugs, or he will not have Ernemgens, but instead have Cities in a Bottle against the Flying Men and the Serendipity Befrieds. That'll be my bet. Hurricanes would be nice as well, but I don't think he's that fond of Hurricanes. Let's brace for impact for round number 2 and see if Mono Green can equalize the score here, or if it's just a clean slate for UR Counterburn. We can see the opening hand here. Volcanic Island and a factory. Oh, he has a Stone Rain as well, so he can actually remove lands. That's usually a problem for UR Counterburn, to have answers against library and stuff like that. But yeah, he has that in there. A couple of fireballs and a Flying Men. It's an iffy hand he's mulliganing here. Yeah, it's a borderline mulligan. Bit of risk. It's not that bad of a hand, but I get it. I mean, it's pretty damn slow. The only removal he had was fireballs. They're slow as an opening spell. And he probably correctly assumes that he needs to survive the early game here. Ooh, 2 Sonic Blasts and a Mountain and a Mox Jet. Not much better here. Removing a Sonic Blast though. At least he has a Chain Lightning. No blue mana though. Okay, Pendelhaven into an Elf here. From Mono Green. We see his hand. Oh, Mazes of Ith, a couple of them. He must have sideboarded them in. Very good. Scavenger Folk and a Script Sprite and another elf. Only that single Pendelhaven for mana. That's what I'm talking about. The mono green player really balancing on the knife's edge here. But he has that elf, and that will provide additional mana besides being an attacking creature. He also has another elf in hand. Library on the hand of the UR Counterburn. He drew into that. A bit of a... Okay, Chain Lightning on the Pendelhaven, on the elf. It was a bit of a decision here because he could have kept it, and then he would be within draw range next turn with the library if he could take a full punch from that elf and a Pendelhaven. But it actually kind of mana starves the mono green player. Now he has a factory, but that's actually the only other land he had besides Mazes of Ith. So if he bolts that other elf and gets rid of the Pendelhaven somehow, a green player is a bit starved. But yeah, he chose to bolt the elf, and now bolting the other elf. Okay, really holding the other guy's mana production back here, but it makes the library kind of dead. Scavenger Folk coming out, though the mono green player, no land drop from him. Keeping the Mazes of Ith in hand. I think another viable play from the UR Counterburn player would perhaps have been just to hold back a bit and get the library going. But he knows he's against Ice Storms as well, so maybe that's also why he chose to go more aggressive here, removing the early mana creatures instead. Maze of Ith coming down, Scavenger Folk coming in. Now if he blocks that, he can mace it and make it return safely with the Scavenger Folk, and he shows that he could have a crumple against the factory, so the UR Counterburn player doesn't dare to attack, doesn't dare to block the Scavenger Folk because it will make him vulnerable to crumbles. So nice little mind game by the mono green player here. Library of Alexandria coming down from the UR Counterburn player. No blue mana yet. And only, I think, 5 cards in hand, so the library is a bit of a dead draw. Script Sprite and Scavenger Folk coming in here. Same deal as before. Do you dare to block the Scavenger Folk? And if you do, you might get crumbled. And the green player doesn't really risk anything, because even if he doesn't have a crumble, well, he can just Maze of Ith his own Scavenger Folk back to safety. Oh, there's another card. Oh, there's a forest at the far end there. Yeah, just went by their table wanting them to correct it. He must have put that down last turn or maybe this turn, because he was a bit mana starved for green mana in the many of the opening rounds here. Okay. Pumping the Script Sprite. Okay. Now he's discussing something here. Okay, after the attack, he mazes his own Scavenger Folk. He does that in order to be... Now he's able to actually activate it with the green mana and sacrifice it to destroy an artifact. And you can't do that before, after attack. I mean, that's another trick with the Maze of Ith. You can maze your own creature after it's dealt its damage, and thus it becomes untapped. So another nice little trick that's good to know in a tournament like this. How to use every ounce out of your Maze of Ith. Coming over again for 2 here. Same trick as before, only 2 points of damage this time. Another Maze of Ith comes down. Still no blue mana out of the UR Counterburn deck. And Brain Geyser and a Flying Men. Oh, and there goes an Ice Storm on the library. Yeah, okay, he was saving up for the library. Had 6 cards in hand, and the green player just waited for him to get almost within draw range. Here comes the mana then. Really holding the UR Counterburn player back for as long as possible before punching in with the Ice Storm. And now, with no library to save up for, there's 2 Moxen and a Fireball clearing the board out of the little green critters. UR Counterburn player exploding back into the game here. Having bet on the wrong horse, I suppose. Betting on that library. But it was the correct play anyway. Factory coming in for 2, using the maze to untap it after it's dealt its damage. Okay, pass the turn right back. No Flying Men coming out, it seems. Okay, another Llanowelf. So I think it's 12 points of life left on the UR Counterburn player. Bit of a stalemate in the game after that fireball. Really took the wind out of the sails of the mono green player. But I wonder why he doesn't play his flying men. It's almost like he wants to have mana on tap to make a Sonic Blast if the other guy attacks with his factory. You can also play a Serendipity Freed. Oh, I suppose against the Mazes of Ith, that's not very nice to play. So, yeah, it's a good sideboard card for the mono green player to get in. Those Mazes of Ith, they work wonders against the Serendipity Freeds and Dewsum Djinns and Serendip Djinns. Another Sonic Blast. No land for the UR Counterburn player. Okay, now he starts to commit with the Flying Men. He can't get in with it because of the Mazes of Ith, but he has 2 in hand. Okay, now the blue mana is tapped. The factory and the elf comes attacking here. And no Sonic Blast can be played by the other guy. So he lets them in, both of them, choosing to have his to not block with his factory. I wonder why though. Fearing a crumble perhaps. Okay, there's another island. Now I can get a Brain Geyser going at least if he so chooses, but he needs to work fast here. Flying Man comes in, gets maced. So it doesn't come in. Another Flying Man. Okay, no Brain Geyser. But he has mana enough for a Sonic Blast here, keeping one island untapped here. Another factory coming out of the mono green player. Almost seems like the mono green player has read the other guy. No, okay. He hasn't. He attacks with the factory. Now, I bet there will be a Sonic Blast on that factory then. Okay, he blocks the factory. Or maybe the elf. Wanting to bait a Giant Growth, and as a response, blocking as we see here. Perhaps he's trying to bait a Giant Growth out, and if there's a Giant Growth, he'll Sonic Blast in response. And that'll make the Giant Growth, the creature die before the Giant Growth takes effect. There's also a Pendlehaven though. Okay, moving their life total up here. The green player at full health. The UR Counterburn player had to spend all his burn just to survive. Until now. Let's see if Mono Green can actually close the game at this point. He has the UR Counterburn player on the ropes. Pumping his factory. It gets Sonic Blasted as a fast effect. I think he's keeping those Sonic Blasts back for as long as possible because he wants to wait for Berserks and Giant Growths. Okay, the elf gets... Oh, okay, it gets pumped by... Oh, wow, it gets pumped by the Pendlehaven and then Berserks twice. So that is for 6 points of damage, and the factory pumps itself, so 3 points of damage all in all, trampling over, putting the UR Counterburn player down to 1 point of life here. Okay, that's pretty brutal. Now that's a Brain Geyser. He has 2 Flying Men to keep him alive against the factory for the time being. Could choose to double block it, so he Brain Geysers for as much as he can here. He really needs to draw some miracle stuff, hanging on by dear life here. Those Berserks almost took him out. Mono Green Stompy keeps up the pressure here, attacking with the factory. There's a double block from the Flying Men. Wanting to get rid of that factory once and for all. Okay, he's okay with the trade. Okay, that's 3 Mazes of Ith on the Mono Green player. That's amazing. He needs to get burned out, and that's a tall order. I mean, 20 points of life here. That's what I talked about in the deck analysis. UR Counterburn kind of loses steam here. His creature strategy has been blocked, and now he needs to burn the other guy out completely from scratch with only bolts and fireballs. Can't get in with his creatures. What does he do here? Okay, tapping out. I wonder, fireball maybe? Oh, Time Walk. Fucking the Time Walk. And a Wheel of Fortune. Ah, that's excellent. That's so cool. Actually losing his entire hand, but he gets 2 turns after this one. Probably reckoning that he needs to make something happen here before the other guy draws into a hurricane or something that can just ping him. Okay, first turn. Now, mind you, he has 2 turns in the bank. This is the first turn used. Forking a Time Walk, you don't see that every day. It's really cool. As I said, I really like Fork. Okay, now activating the factory, attacking here. Will we see a crumble or will it just be a peaceful Mace of Ith? Nope, there's a crumble on it. Okay, there's a dead factory. Strip mining. Next turn. Okay, that's a second turn after the wheel. It's always nice to get a turn after a Wheel of Fortune. Now he has 2 turns after Wheel of Fortune. I didn't get anything. Probably wanted to strip mine one of the untapped maces and then attack again with the factory for a couple of times. Was not to be. A Golden Pixie is coming out here. Now the mono green player has a full hand of creatures, likely 2 Golden Pixies. Okay, countering the other one. Yeah, even 1 Golden Pixies is lethal here. Okay, getting bolted though. Nope. Oh, Giant Growth to make it survive. Hot damn. That is brutal. Now if the Golden Pixies survive, the next turn it'll get in and kill the other guy for the final point of damage. He needs something to remove it with here. What can he make happen? Otherwise, it's game. And it'll be 1-1. Volcanic Island coming out. Counting something up again. Oh, it looks like a recall. Oh man. Nice fight out of the UR Counterburn deck here. Really doing everything he can to survive. 1 point of life. What? Yeah, recalling here. Getting the Time Walk, the Fireball, and the Fork. Okay, I think he should have taken the Brain Geyser. He could have done that as well. He obviously needs the Time Walk, but wouldn't it be better, strictly better, to get... Oh, of course, he needs something to destroy that Golden Pixies. Yeah, perhaps taking a Time Walk, a Brain Geyser, and a Fireball. Or just a Bolt, really. Just take a Bolt and a Brain Geyser. Wouldn't that be better? If he has a Brain Geyser? Doesn't he have a Brain Geyser? I don't know. It's a big decision here. Okay, taking the wheel it seems, and a Fireball. No, a wheel and a Fork and a Time Walk. Now Time Walking straight after that recall. 2 counter spells, Fireball and a wheel. Okay, he took the wheel instead of the Fork then. Okay. I suppose you can Fireball for a bunch. Fireball the Golden Pixies and then Fireball the other player for the same amount. The green player is tapped out, so no Giant Growths coming out of him to help the Golden Pixies this time. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Fireballing both for 3 it seems, and then Wheel of Fortune. No, both for 2, and then Wheel of Fortune. Risky play. I mean, yeah, sure. Gets a new hand. Okay, gets an island out. And he has a counterspell in hand and a Time Twister, so he can keep it going. But the mono green player has another new hand. Let's see. A bunch of factories and a Strip Mine and a Script Sprite and a Berserk. We have a Time Twister and a couple of factories on the other hand. I think we have a counterspell as well. So, buying time here. Oh, Strip Mine on the Volcanic Island. He taps it for good measure, but the other guy can just enter his attack step and the mana pool would empty. Still, he can't use it for countering. Okay, 2 Script Sprites coming down here, and he can't counter. So that's a bit of a pickle. There's a Pendelhaven up, so he can't Fireball both. One of them would survive to the Pendelhaven. Ancestor Recall. He needs a double bolt here just to survive. Black Lotus, Mox Emerald. Okay, so Chain Lightning. This is absurd. You could Chain Lightning one of them and then he would cast Time Twister. Try to get another answer. It just keeps on going. Okay, Chain Lightning on one of them. Getting down a mountain. Now Time Twister. Are you kidding me? Okay. So we have a Time Twister. Oh, what's this? And then Giant Growth. Oh, he Giant Growth as a response. He counters it. Yeah, they're just emptying cards from their hand here. He does that in order to have very nice play again. He does this in order to make the Script Sprite survive if the other guy draws into a Lightning Bolt with his new hand. The Script Sprite would be a 4/4 and would be able to survive. And he only needs to come in next turn for 1. But the other guy counters it, recognizing the danger immediately. And I mean, it's free cards, right? You might as well play them before the Time Twister replenishes your hand. Did he play a Volcanic Iron? I don't think he can. I think he played a Mountain before. Chain Lightning on the Script Sprite here. Yeah, he had a Psychic Purge, but he can't use it because the other guy would just use the Pendelhaven and the Script Sprite would survive. Because it's, Psychic Purge only does 1 point of damage. Now playing a Factory, I mean, how many land drops does he have? Am I missing something here? I'll have to look it over one more time after this, I think. I think he's played 3 lanes out of all those draw 7s, but it's not a Time Walk. Or maybe he just regrets a play and does it over? No. Anyway, Golden Pixie's coming out. It's the green player's turn here. Script Sprite coming out. Can he finalize this Psychic Purge on the Golden Pixies? And it can't be pumped by the Pendelhaven, but it can be Giant Growths. Okay. So it survives that Psychic Purge. That is really bad news for the UR Counterburn player. Oh, he gets 2 blockers out though. That's incredible. And now strip mining a factory. There's a blocking factory and the flying men, and will handle the Script Sprite and the Golden Pixies. So UR Counterburn player still hanging on. This is one of the most insane games I've seen. I mean, he just won't go down. After several draw 7s. So yeah, I mentioned it in the deck tech as well. Kind of need some reach out of the green player. He has a by the throat, but he can't finish it because he doesn't have any burn spells. Imagine what a Hurricane would do here. I know I'm beating a dead horse, but I think they should be in there. Okay, blocking. Oh, it's a Berserk though. Ah, that does it. The Script Sprite gets 2 in power here. Oh, maybe. No, perhaps he used the Pendelhaven, so it has 4 in power. Then it tramples over the flying men, killing the UR Counterburn player. Finally, what a match, man. Yeah, so it's 1-1 at this point. We're going into the 3rd round of this set. I mean, anything can happen here. Really nice game, this one. So I don't know what the sideboard will have to keep our eyes out. I would imagine that the green player would get some Toughness 4 creatures in there. I would imagine that. It would be great against all the bolts, but I don't know if Jesper, the green player, has some Ernam or Spitting Slugs in there. We'll just see. This is round number 3. We see the opening hand again here. Volcanic Island into Flying Men and a Red Mox. Has a counter magic, counter spell, Wheel of Fortune, Lightning Bolt, Factory in hand. Green player answers with a Factory, getting bolted at his end step. So yeah, he does. The blue-red player does this to really put the hurt on the other guy, and then he has a Wheel of Fortune just to replenish the hand. Oh, there's a City in a Bottle. Okay, so we won't likely see any Ernam out of the green player. He has taken in his Cities of Bottle instead, and I thought as much. Jesper, he usually plays with 2. So yeah, no Ernam. Will we see Spitting Slugs though? New hand. A lot of moxing out of the UR Counterburn player here. There's a Forest and the first Golden Pixies coming down. Now UR Counterburn player, it looks like he's at 1 point of life, but that's just a remnant from the previous game. He's at a full 20 health. Nice and healthy here. Going into a Sonic Blast, that's a Strip Mine. Should you Strip Mine the Factory or the green mana? Bit of a dilemma here. Strip Mine the Factory. Oh, attacking for 3. Oh, okay, really aggressive move here. UR Counterburn player really putting the pedal to the metal here, and a counterspell in hand. 2 blue mana. There's the green elf coming out, and a Pendelhaven. So cracking the Factory was the correct play here. He had additional green mana. what was that? Counterspell on the elf. Okay, really pouring every resource he has in keeping the green player in a lock and just punching him in the face repeatedly. 3 points of damage, crumbling the factories here. Only 1 point of damage from the flying men. Green player punches back here. Okay. Plenty of mana on the side of the UR Counterburn player. Factory coming down. Okay, there's a bit of a pickle, a bit of a dilemma here. It seems ice storming perhaps. Looks like it. Should probably ice storm the volcanic island. Doesn't choose to. Oh, Sonic Blast at his end step. Look at this aggression out of the UR Counterburn player, coming in with the Flying Man again for another poke. 4 points of damage. Oh, he makes the Flying Man go berserk. That's 5 points of damage then, but then the Flying Man dies. Another Flying Man coming out. Hot damn. Green player on the ropes here. From a brutal opening out of a UR Counterburn player this time. Oh, that's a Spitting Slug. Such a rare sight, but you sometimes see them after sideboard in this particular matchup because there are no swords to plowshares and only bolts. It is a 2/4 creature. Oh, that's Sonic Blast against it though. Yeah, he'll Sonic Blast him twice, one in his end step and one afterwards. So yeah, we didn't see the Spitting Slug for more than a cameo here. Nice to see that old fella one more time. 8 points of damage, 2 Sonic Blast to the head of the green player here. That's game. Yeah, really a nice one, this one. Best of 3. We'll see the sideboard options here. An extra crumble? No, I think... Okay, he's taking a crumble and a Mace of Ith out. So he must have played with the Maces of Ith main deck, or... Can't imagine him taking a crumble in against UR Counterburn. I mean, we saw what the other guy sideboarded, right? It was 2 Psychic Purge and a Fireball, and took 2 Red Blasts out. The green player... Looks like he took in 2 Splitting Slugs, and took out a Mace of Ith and a crumble to make room for them, it seems. So, yeah, makes sense. The 4 in toughness creatures are the way to go, I think. So, yeah, what a match. I mean, this actually went to time. When I saw it one more time, I realized there was that counter at the bottom. I'll put down a comment when it comes in. It's a dice that you put in once you have played for so long that there's no longer any time left for the tournament match. And then there's a countdown. But yeah, I guess that's why UR Counterburn went to town like this so quick. So yeah, just finished the game, really got the hand he needed, a lot of burn, and just won through that in a grueling 2-1 match here against the mono green Stompy deck. Great one, this one. Okay, let's see what's else on the camera. This is a very nice start, I think, on these matches. So let's check the next one out. I'll catch you next time.